as Kamala Harris delivered an emotional statement following her defeat to Donald Trump in the presidential election of 2024, Tim Walz was overcome with emotion and broke down in tears. There were hundreds of people in the crowd who were observed crying and wearing sunglasses while Harris was giving her concession speech on Wednesday evening. Harris broke her silence to confront her loss for the first time. During his remarks at Howard University in Washington, District of Columbia, Walz, who is 60 years old, was observed crying with his hand placed over his heart. While standing next to his wife, Gwen, and daughter, Hope, who were both wearing sunglasses, the governor of Minnesota smiled broadly. Additionally, Ella Emhoff, who is Harris's stepdaughter, was observed crying among the audience. The Vice President of the United States spoke for approximately 12 minutes, offering solace to her supporters who were crushed by Trump's huge victory. "It's going to be okay," Harris assured the entire gathering. The fact is that the decision was made by Harris in a phone call to Trump on Wednesday after he had previously refused to speak to the media while he was in the lead. She finally emerged from hiding in order to give a concession statement at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, during which her vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, was seen crying. An invitation to visit the White House was extended to Trump by Vice President Joe Biden as well. Regarding the election, Biden is scheduled to deliver a speech on Thursday. At approximately 2:30 in the morning Eastern Time on Tuesday, President Trump and his entire family mounted the stage in Florida to celebrate his victory. J.D. Vance, who was his running companion, referred to the triumph as the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States. As a result of Ted Cruz's victorious re-election in Texas, the Republicans were able to seize control of the Senate. During the time when Harris was speaking, Walz's emotional response caused a swarm of responses to be posted on social media by viewers. On X, someone made the observation that Tim Walz appears to be inconsolable. "Seeing Tim Walz's daughter crying like she was crushing my heart even more," a different individual wrote. Others, on the other hand, were eager to criticize Walz's performance. "Tim Walz crying at Kamala's speech may be the most pathetic thing I've seen in this election," a user on X complained about. In another piece of writing, someone stated, "Tim Walz is crying, man, we really did not see this coming. This is a really frightening situation at all." As a result of Walz's absence from the event, Harris was left to talk to her fans on her own, during which she pledged to continue fighting for the United States of America. The address was delivered by Harris, who appeared to be overcome with emotion as she expressed her appreciation for her team and the people who supported her throughout the campaign, which began only a few short months ago when Vice President Joe Biden withdrew from the race. It is noteworthy that both Vice President Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, did not attend the speech. Following a phone call to Trump in which Harris conceded and asked for a peaceful transition of power, Harris delivered those remarks. During the speech, she requested that her supporters acknowledge and accept the results of the election. "Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory," she explained to reporters. The audience erupted in jeers as soon as Harris brought up the name of Donald Trump. "I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power," Harris added to the conversation. A statement of Obama's share. In spite of the fact that Biden did not attend the concession address, former President Barack Obama issued a statement after spending a number of weeks on the campaign trail with Harris. "Given our profound disagreements with the Republican ticket on a whole host of issues," the statement from Barack and Michelle Obama read, "this is obviously not the outcome we had hoped for," the statement continued. "But living in a democracy is about recognizing that our point of view won't always win out and being willing to accept the peaceful transfer of power." After extending their congratulations to Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, the Obamas expressed their pride in Harris and Walz of the Democratic Party. The Democrats are described as two extraordinary public servants who ran a remarkable campaign, according to the statement that they released. On the night of a historic election, when the dust of political battle settled and the magnitude of an unprecedented defeat reverberated across the nation, An unexpected moment of raw emotion unfolded in front of millions. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, known for his pragmatic leadership and calm demeanor, was seen with tears streaming down his face, his hand placed over his heart as he watched Kamala Harris deliver a concession speech following the crushing defeat of Donald Trump. This powerful image, seemingly captured by fate, carried a message far deeper than the superficial narrative of election night. It was a moment of empathy, of shared humanity, and of vulnerability, one that spoke volumes about the nature of leadership, the fragility of hope, and the profound weight of the national journey that had just unfolded. The backdrop of the election. A nation in crisis. In the months leading up to the election, the United States was in turmoil. A global pandemic ravaged the nation, leaving millions sick and thousands dead. The economic landscape was in disarray, with small businesses shuttering, unemployment rates soaring, and families struggling to stay afloat. Social unrest reached new heights after incidents of police violence sparked widespread protests, leading to conversations around race, justice, and inequality. The 2020 election, scheduled for November 3, was not just a political contest between two candidates, it was a referendum on the state of the nation itself. President Donald Trump, running for re-election, represented a deeply polarized and fractious America. His tenure had been marked by scandal, controversy, and division. His handling of the COVID-19 pandemic was widely criticized, and his response to the Black Lives Matter movement had further alienated many voters. On the other side, the Democratic ticket was led by Joe Biden, the former vice president who sought to unite the country in a time of crisis. Kamala Harris, his running mate, made history as the first woman of South Asian and African American descent to run for vice president. As the election unfolded, the intensity of the race was palpable. Battleground states flipped back and forth, and the outcome was uncertain for days as millions of mail-in ballots were counted. In the early hours of November 4, it became clear that Biden had won the Electoral College and with it, the presidency. The news reverberated across the nation and the world. Kamala Harris's concession speech, a moment of grace amid defeat. Despite the obvious loss, it was Kamala Harris, the vice presidential candidate, who stood before the nation and addressed the American people. It was an unusual moment for many political observers, a concession speech delivered by a woman who had made history as the first woman of color to run for vice president of the United States. And while she spoke with grace and poise, Harris's words carried an unmistakable weight. We came here with hope, with the belief that our country could do better. But we've seen that hope manifest in the way this campaign inspired millions across this country to fight for something greater, Harris said, her voice steady but tinged with the gravity of the moment. We stand on the shoulders of so many who have fought for justice, equality, and the right to be heard. And even in defeat, we will not stop fighting for what is right. For Harris, who had risen to such political prominence, the loss of the election was a bitter blow, not just personally but symbolically. It marked the end of a fierce battle for the soul of the nation. Yet her speech was filled with dignity. She spoke of the future, of the need to build a better America, and of the unyielding spirit of those who had supported her. But it was her acknowledgement of the emotional cost, both to herself and to her supporters, that seemed to resonate with the public the most. As she spoke, the camera caught a striking image. Governor Tim Walz, a politician with a reputation for calm and stoicism, seated in the audience, visibly moved by the moment. His hand was placed over his heart, and tears ran down his face. The moment was brief but undeniable. The significance of Walz's emotional response. At first glance, Tim Walz's reaction might seem surprising. He is, after all, a seasoned politician, one who has spent years in public office, including as a U.S. congressman before becoming the governor of Minnesota. Known for his pragmatic leadership style, Walz has long been a figure of stability in the political landscape. His public persona is one of restraint, balance, and focused leadership. So why did he, a man so often associated with reason and practicality, allow himself to be so vulnerable in this moment? The answer lies in the nature of leadership itself, particularly in times of crisis. Throughout his career, Walz has positioned himself as a politician who believes in the common good, in the power of unity, and in the importance of empathy. His emotional response was not just a personal moment of sentimentality, it was a reflection of the deep empathy he felt for Harris, for the millions of Americans who had hoped for a different outcome, and for the nation as a whole. As a leader, Walz has consistently demonstrated an ability to connect with the people of Minnesota on an emotional level. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he was known for his compassionate leadership style, offering comfort and reassurance during a time of immense uncertainty. His tears on the night of Harris's speech represented a rare moment of emotional honesty and acknowledgement of the pain that many Americans were feeling in that moment. The power of empathy in leadership. Empathy is a rare quality in politics, where the pressures of power and public expectations often demand a tough, unyielding demeanor. Yet, moments like the one displayed by Walz serve as a reminder that true leadership is not just about making decisions or navigating political landscapes. At its heart, leadership is about understanding the people you serve, their hopes, their fears, their struggles, and their triumphs. Empathy allows leaders to connect with the human experience, to see beyond the numbers and the policies, and to recognize the emotional weight of the decisions they make. Walz's tears were not a sign of weakness, rather they were a testament to his ability to feel the full depth of the moment, to understand, in his own way, the collective grief and hope of a nation. This moment also underscored the importance of emotional intelligence in political leadership. While policy decisions are often based on logic and analysis, the human side of leadership requires understanding emotions, building trust, and offering a sense of solidarity during difficult times. Walz's display of emotion was a reminder that leaders who connect with their constituents on a personal and emotional level are often more effective in times of crisis, because they are able to address not just the physical and material needs of the people, but their emotional and psychological needs as well. A larger context. The role of male leaders in emotional expression. Walz's emotional response also touches on a larger societal conversation about the role of men, particularly male politicians, in expressing vulnerability. For years, political leadership has been characterized by stoicism and emotional control. Men in power, in particular, have been conditioned to suppress emotions, viewing vulnerability as a sign of weakness. But moments like these challenge that narrative. By allowing himself to cry, Walz rejected the traditional image of the stoic male leader and embraced a more human, relatable side of leadership. In doing so, he helped to normalize emotional expression among men in positions of power. In a time when mental health and emotional well-being are gaining recognition as essential components of public discourse, Walz's display of emotion represented an important step in dismantling harmful stereotypes about masculinity and leadership. The nation's collective grief and hope. Walz's tears, as well as Harris's words, symbolized a moment of national reflection. For many Americans, the election results were not just a political defeat, but a personal one. It was the culmination of years of political polarization, economic hardship, and social unrest. Harris's concession speech, with its themes of resilience and hope, reminded the country that while one chapter had ended, another was just beginning. In Walz's tearful reaction, many saw the embodiment of collective grief. The grief over lost potential, over fractured communities, and over a future that seemed more uncertain than ever. But his tears also reflected a deep well of hope, a hope that despite the challenges ahead, the country could heal and rebuild, that change was still possible, and that the values of empathy and unity could ultimately guide the nation through its darkest moments. A moment of healing and reflection. Tim Walz's emotional response to Kamala Harris's concession speech was a moment of profound humanity in an otherwise divisive and tumultuous political landscape. It was a reminder that, in times of loss and uncertainty, leaders must not